of whenever we were always at odds. And you get reminded of all these stories, but I guess the progression is there.
You should be a politician. That made no sense.
You're listening to the Nacho Kids podcast, where we discuss all things step family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Welcome to episode 268 of the Nacho Kids podcast. This is a good one, y'all. We've got two of David's kids on here with us today. So, without further ado, let's get to listening. Today, we have two special guests for y'all, and it's not me and David.
They're special, all right.
So, we have two of David's kids.
That's right.
We have Ethan.
That's me.
And we have Branson.
That's me.
Yeah, and they've both been on the podcast before individually.
Yes.
So we got them all in the same room today for a follow-up.
So, Ethan, you threaten me a lot.
Indeed. Rightfully so.
So, you want to tell people what happened this morning that I said, that you heard me say?
Absolutely. So I told Lori I was going to end her career today. I'm going to expose her, and that's exactly what I'm about to do. So, folks, this morning, Lori was talking about the recent events that happened with Donald Trump and his shooting at his rally. And she was saying she was giving the Secret Service guys props for trying to cover him and protect him because that's their job. But she was saying that she wouldn't do that unless it was her son or her husband. There was no mention of a stepson anywhere in there. So I proceeded to call her out. I was like, what about stepson? And then she tried to backpedal, but it was too late. Damage was already done. So Lori's officially exposed.
I didn't think you could hear me.
Yeah. I hear everything.
Hey, look, I was shocked I was in that mix.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I know, honestly, though, truth be told, if it was me, she wouldn't be there either. I've seen times when chaos ensued around us, and she has the ability to teleport. She will be gone.
Yeah, we went to a July 4th thing several years ago, and they had all these fireworks set up. It was like a community fireworks show, and one of them got knocked over towards the crowd.
No, wait a minute now. It wasn't one of them. Like they had like a whole row of these. What are the ones that, like cannons?
Mortars?
Yeah, the mortars. They had a whole row of them, like I guess screwed down to a board. And so the board fell over. So there's like a dozen mortars pointed at the crowd.
Oh, wow.
And they started firing into the crowd. And I turned to Lori to say, run. She was 100 yards away. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, I had to go.
Yeah.
Yep. So Branson has recently moved in with us with his fiance and their sweet baby boy. So Branson, what is it like moving back in?
I guess you get kind of a feel of, you don't get a feel of taking a step back, but you get a feel of what it was like. You kind of get reminded of things, whether it's intentional or not intentional, whenever we bring up different stories about what used to happen in the devil years.
The battle days.
Yeah, the days of the battle. Whenever we start first, of whenever we were always at odds. And you get reminded of all these stories, but I guess the progression is there.
You should be a politician. That made no sense.
I guess I didn't understand your question. What do you mean by that? That's what I should have asked. What do you mean by that? I don't know if you were talking about in relation to something. What do you mean by that?
So what is it like you as an, I'm sorry, y'all can't see Ethan. He's losing it. He's laughing so hard. What is it like as an adult step kid moving back home with your dad and stepmom after you've been gone 6 years? Do you feel like you're coming home, or do you feel like you're in somebody else's house?
You feel like you're in somebody else's house because mainly
Y'all don't
because
act
you have
like it.
mainly because you have your own family, and I guess it must be a cultural thing, but you're like, we need our own space. And you, whether it's in like a friendly environment or not, it's, you don't really have all of your own space, but you're like, I need to get my family in their own space. But yeah, it absolutely feels like I'm just kind of taking up space, but I don't know. It doesn't feel bad though. It's kind of necessary. It's either that or paying out of pocket to be somewhere else so the opportunity is appreciated.
It probably feels a little bit of both. Like this is familiar, it's home, but it's also not familiar because it's 6 years later and you've changed and you're bringing back a baby and a fiance and you're trying to get settled and get a job and find a house and move out. So I'm sure it's probably a little bit of all of that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that where my focus was. Everybody likes to point out how much I stress about things, but the stressors of like finding a job and getting your life back on track kind of drowns out the noise of whatever the living situation is.
True indeed.
Okay. David, do you got anything to say about that?
Well, from my standpoint, of course, we've done it before. He's the third time that we've done this. So we call this the halfway house. When they get out of the military, it's halfway between that and civilian life. I think it's always a little bit of everything. Like I'm glad that they're back and it's like, I hadn't seen them in so long and love having everybody over and, got grandkids now. So that's fun. And then at the same time, it's also, I think Branson's kind of touching on this. It's also a little bit stressful because you're not you don't have the same normality anymore. Now there's people in your house and there's other things to consider, other people to consider. And so your routines change. And I mean, even something as simple as dinner time now becomes something that has to be planned for. Whereas you and I would be like 5 o'clock. Okay, what are we doing for dinner? Can't do that. We have to plan because there's other people involved and all this. And so it just adds a different level of complexity to your daily life to have to adjust to.
I know the other day we were celebrating your last day of Rotary.
As Rotary president.
As Rotary president.
Right.
And so I got cupcakes.
Yep.
And next thing I know, Branson's inviting your sister and them down to eat cupcakes.
What a kind gesture.
Yeah. What a gentleman.
And I said, you're inviting somebody to our house for something that we didn't invite them to? And you're like, well, it's just Angie. I'm like, but that's not the point. And so then a couple of days later, Avery came up and said you invited him to dinner. And I'm like, I'm not. Yeah. And Branson's like, well, he's family. I'm like, I get that, but I'm not cooking for everybody. And you're looking at it as it's your brother.
Right.
And I'm looking at it as we didn't prepare to have somebody else for dinner.
Yeah. He's always welcome. They're all always welcome to come over. Just don't expect that there's always going to be food there if we didn't know you were coming.
Right. Right. Now, Ethan, what about you? Because you were the second to move back in.
Yeah, well, it definitely felt like home. Coming here it always feels like home here. But whenever I came back, Avery and his wife also lived here at the same time. So it was rough for me a little bit because I didn't have my own room really at all.
Because you were used to having the spare room.
Yeah, so I lived in a room, but it wasn't really my own room. There was already a bunch of stuff in here anyway. I just made enough space to sleep in it. And then I had to share a bathroom with Jackson. That was all the way downstairs. So I had to walk a mile and a half to go to the bathroom. So it was annoying, that aspect of it. But as far as being home and feel like I was home, it was nice for sure. Not having my own room and the bathroom, all that, it was not fun, but it definitely felt like home for sure.
It was an adjustment.
Yeah, it was a little adjustment.
Better than being in Saudi Arabia, though, right?
Yeah, definitely a lot better than being in the sand dunes of Saudi Arabia. In the tents.
Got to put things in perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it was good. It's always good to come back here and visit now that I do live in my own place. I like coming back here and visit.
Well, and we love having you here. That's like yesterday, Branson decides to ask, or Friday, Dad, can Ethan come this weekend? I'm like, you don't have to ask if Ethan can come.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to always to have somewhere you can call home and know you can go back to where you grew up at and kind of reminisce a little bit sometimes.
Well, I honestly never thought that I would like having any of y'all back here. Not going to lie. And, you know, my relationship with each of you is different.
Yeah.
It was awkward. Well, both Avery and Branson moved in with us with either pregnant girlfriend or a girlfriend and a baby.
That's true.
So it's like I didn't meet Branson's fiance until she was here.
Yeah.
I didn't meet Avery's wife till she was here. So that made it even weirder. You've got this stranger, quote, quote, in your home.
Imagine how they feel, though.
I know. That's what I think about. And so we want everybody to feel comfortable. But with Avery, if he did something, I don't feel comfortable telling Avery to pick up after himself like I do with you, Ethan. It's just that different relationship.
Yeah.
And plus, no matter what you do wrong, you will say, oh, my bad, Lolo. And I can't be mad at that. And plus, you give the best hugs. You give the best hugs. You do.
I do reckon.
Branson, you going to take that?
Go ahead, Branson, say something.
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking about other stuff so I don't have a mini stroke again.
Why?
I was trying to. Ethan's over here laughing at me for that mini stroke I had at the beginning of the podcast. So I'm preparing myself if any questions come my way so that doesn't happen again.
Okay.
But yeah, Ethan does get the best hugs. I'm not going to argue with that.
He does. It's like you feel the love.
Yeah. I mean, and it's 2% body fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's,
I guess him in trouble in other ways, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We won't go down there. This is a PG podcast.
For the people.
Mm-hmm. But Branson, you and Amanda, y'all found jobs quickly. Y'all were very fortunate to find jobs quickly. You've got your ducks in a row to get out soon. But one thing we stressed to y'all and we stressed to Avery in the beginning was we don't want y'all to feel rushed to leave and make a bad decision.
Right.
Because it's important for us that you do well when you leave so you don't come back again. Because we know if you leave and end up somewhere that you can't afford or something happens, then guess what? You coming back.
Yeah. You stay as long as you want. Just don't make it too long.
Right.
But that was something that we wanted to make sure that y'all understood because there was, with Kay and Avery, they had looked at an apartment because they felt pressured to leave. And it wasn't our pressure, it was their own pressure. And
explain that to you? Was that ever explained? Like what kind of pressure do you feel?
I think it was more of a timing thing. Like we should be out by now.
So they were kind of holding themselves to their own expectation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. Now you have to ask Avery what, why they felt that way or whatever.
It probably had to do with me. He'll say it had to do with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they I guess at some point they were kind of like, okay, something's got to happen. Something's got to give. Because it is harder for 3 people to live up in that room.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that they weren't having very much luck trying to find a place to purchase.
And struggling with jobs.
Yeah. So there was just a lot of other things going into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you get into where you kind of get in that hurry because I know me and Amanda have had these conversations before. We're always grateful for what we're given, but like we've said a couple of times, we're ready to be back in our own groove because you get in those little habits and you get like your own rituals. And it's like if you're not to where you have all of that space or like your own house, is you have to take other people into consideration, or you have to ask more questions. You can't just go do something. You know what I mean? So that's probably what could be a reason of why they felt rushed out, because they were like, we need to get back to where we can do our own thing without having to feel like we're burdening someone else because of what we want to do. You know?
Right. Because I do remember Kay asking me something one day, and I was like, you don't have to ask me that. She said, but I feel like I do.
Right.
So, like, you even have to say, is it okay if I do laundry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of us. We've got certain days we try to do laundry. So things like that have to be taken into consideration.
Right. And that's not a big thing to you, but the fact that that weighs on her, that I think I need to ask for every single thing to do, causes added stress. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just feel like we have to get out of here now, because of stress that you don't even realize that they're putting themselves under, something as simple as asking questions, you know?
Yeah.
It's the lack of freedom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your dad's upset because he can't run around naked anymore.
He ain't the only one.
Is that you, Branson?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I
All
start
right.
doing it then. if you miss it that much.
Oh, God. No. Because then Branson will go, well, Dad's doing it. And then Ethan will go, well, Branson's doing it.
Are you Jackson will be the first one on the bandwagon?
Oh, yeah. Don't be bringing my baby boy into this. So one thing that I don't think any of us have ever forgotten, and Branson, which is amazing because your memory is worse than a 90-year-old man's,
Pretty bad.
but the Yoo-hoo incident.
The Yoo-hoo incident.
Yoo-hoo gate.
Can't forget about that.
Yoo-hoo gate.
Yeah.
As an adult, what are your thoughts on Yoo-hoo gate?
Has the story ever been explained on the podcast?
Yeah.
I explained my version. You go with yours.
Well, since I can't remember my version, Ethan will have to say it for you.
All right, Ethan.
Let's see. If I can recall correctly, I know Branson wanted a Yoo-hoo, and you told him to some effect. Was it that he couldn't have one, or
They were for Jackson's lunch.
yeah, they were for Jackson. Everything labeled Jackson. Jackson this, Jackson that. We don't care. I think Branson wanted to get one, and she basically told him no, and
Or that I needed to ask. I don't know. You'd have to help me out with it, but from my understanding, it was like Lori wanted me to just ask if it was okay to have one, not to just take things knowing that someone else could have the intention of using that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, we're all the you who go, oh, I drank them. Why? It was like, oh, because that was for something else. Not that you couldn't have one. It's just, if I drink 5 in a night, which could be very likely, then we would just like to know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the incident sparked. Say it again, Lori.
I'm trying to think how it turned into a huge argument where we
Yeah.
all just fighting about Yoo-hoo.
Well, that's what happens a lot of times is these big blow-ups happen. And even 20 minutes later, you don't remember exactly what the trigger was
Yeah.
because emotions run wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, it was they were for Jackson's lunch. And we had to label stuff that way because if not, like you said, y'all would eat everything.
Yeah.
And y'all didn't take your lunch then. Y'all bought lunch. So he took his lunch. So it was like, leave his lunch stuff alone. And I remember, it's funny, the stuff you can remember specifically. I remember hearing the refrigerator door shut in the laundry room.
Mhm.
And I knew. And I don't remember if I said, no, you can't have it, or you need to ask, or what. But then my memory goes to me standing at the bottom of the steps and Ethan bowing up his chest at me.
I do remember that. I remember that. I feel like the man.
Yeah.
I was like, if she comes up here, I'm pushing her back down.
Yeah. Y'all were both like, come on.
Yeah, and there were a couple insults thrown.
Probably a few.
A bunch. I'm sure.
I remember after all that, we were all going to go to Mama's house to just get away from you.
Mhm.
And we were trying to get Avery to go because we weren't going to leave him here by himself. And he wouldn't get off the game.
He's like, that's y'all's problem,
He
dude.
was
I'm
like
good.
on the computer, and we're like, Avery, come on. We got to go to Mama's house. We're out of here.
We got to go to Mama's and fuss about Lori. Come on.
Yeah. And we see Dad pull up, and we're like, oh, it's too late. We're done for.
We're done for.
Yeah. So,
We haven't had time to rally the troops.
yeah.
But I don't remember, and I don't know if y'all remember, but I'm sure your dad addressed the issue But
Oh yeah, I dressed it.
okay, so you have memories of that.
So what did I do? Because I
we
don't recall.
I think we got whooped for that.
Did you?
Pretty sure we got whooped for that for sure.
Well,
he said he's pretty sure.
pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Branson, you don't remember.
Well, I remember we were taken outside and me and Ethan were given a lick. I'll call it for
couple
PGs.
of licks.
And then what I remember specifically, and this was such an influential moment,
Oh God.
because Dad is so conscious about what he's doing at all times. And he cussed at us.
Oh,
And that was one of his huge no-nos. You do not cuss for any reason, for a lot of different reasons that you wouldn't do that.
right.
But I remember that night I was showering and he came in the bathroom. He was like, I just want to apologize for how I acted. Although I was giving you a punishment for something you did that was clearly wrong, there was something I did wrong too. And I shouldn't have acted that way. And I was like, wow, beautiful.
Brings a tear to my eye today.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
I know that one of the things your dad complains about, or not complains about, but says that was one of his biggest struggles is y'all would do something wrong. And I would tell him, and even if I didn't say it, I would look at him like, what are you going to do about it?
Mhm.
And I don't recall anything that he did to y'all, but your dad would usually go talk to y'all. And that was up to him how it was handled. Even though I wasn't nachoing at that point, I still wasn't involved in the repercussions of your behavior or the discussions of your behavior. He wanted to have that alone time with y'all to
Yeah.
address that.
But in the beginning, you would ask me, you'd ask me, how did I handle it?
Yep.
And that was problematic. Like
Mhm.
for me, it was kind of a part of me felt like it's none of your business how I handled it.
Ooh,
And
shooky,
then-
shooky. Don't say that.
And then the other part of it was, it's kind of like you don't trust me to do it, or you should, what I mean by none of your business, I mean how I parent my kids should not be something that we need to have a conversation about. I took care of it the way I thought that it should be best handled. And you questioning that was questioning my parenting.
Right.
Which,
And I get that.
Yeah.
But from a step parent standpoint, we want to know it was addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to know what you did. Because that way we can judge your punishment or not.
Right. Which is not correct.
Right.
Because if you're judging that, then you're not trusting that person to parent their own kids.
Yeah, because you could have said, well, I took him outside and I spanked him. I could have been like, well, you should have put him on restriction too. Because I'd be adding my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, it boils down to what we talk about often, which is a different style of parenting is not necessarily a wrong style of parenting. It's just different.
Right.
And you're always going, well, I shouldn't say always, but you're often going to think that the person didn't do what you would have done.
Right. So since this was brought up, I want to talk about this for a second. Y'all were raised by your dad, where if you did something wrong, you did get a whooping.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not a beating,
Yeah.
but a whooping.
Yeah. Correct.
The only time I ever remember anybody getting a whooping, one time Ethan was in the top bunk and your daddy was whooping you because you had did something. Everybody was over here, your mama, everybody. You had did something really bad.
Probably.
and I bring all this up because, spanking and paddling, all that stuff is a huge source of contention.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up, my mama tore my butt up.
Yeah.
Like daily. She would have killed you, Ethan. You'd have been dead. But I remember that one time your dad spanking you. And Branson, I remember one time we were in the kitchen and you smarted off to me and your dad went after you and he pushed the kitchen table. And you were going to be trapped between the wall and the table and your dad. And I was telling your dad, I'm like, no, calm down. And so I kept saying that I saved your life that day.
Potentially.
But with all that being said, number one, your dad never left a mark on y'all. I never remember him. Ethan touches his heart.
Internal.
Internal heartbreak.
Hurt my feelings a few times.
but I don't remember him spanking anybody else. Just add
Not
that
really.
in there.
Yeah, not really. I know the main one.
But yeah, you were the main one.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah. But as a parent now, because both of y'all are parents,
Uh,
how do you feel about disciplining your children with a pop on the butt or a spanking?
yeah.
So how do you feel about that? Or have you even thought about it, how you're going to discipline your own kids?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot, and it's crazy that nowadays, especially parents our age, they think that any sort of physical discipline is horrible for children, or that it's traumatizing to children, and that you shouldn't do it and you should use other methods. But that method of disciplining children has worked for all of human time. So why we try to change it now when it's worked for all of humanity? So I agree heavily with physical discipline. Obviously, the difference between abuse and discipline, but you can't cross that line. But I'm all for giving your kid a whooping if they're acting up, because pain is one of the best ways to learn anything in life.
Yeah, if you go to touch a fire and it doesn't burn, you're going to continue to touch the fire.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think discipline is necessary, and you have to have it.
Yeah, I think the whole we can go down a rabbit hole on this one, but I think the whole physical discipline argument is oftentimes in relation to the fact that there are people who don't know where that line is.
Yeah,
Well, because parents can control their anger and their emotions, and they're
Right.
mad when they're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to say just don't do it than to say no win is too much. And of course, if it's one of those things where you've done it and now you regret it, well, the damage is done at that point. Now, on the flip side of things, you can never physically discipline your kid, but emotionally and mentally do just all kind of wreck
Mhm.
to them.
oh yeah,
So it's like, honestly, if you have to choose between which one's worse, and of course this is just completely my opinion, but I would rather if I was the kid, I would rather have got my tail tore up than have my parents do some type of emotional damage to me that, have my tail tore up, I'm done and, hurting in 15 minutes. Whereas emotionally, I'm carrying that for the rest of my life.
yeah, absolutely. So for any parents out there, whoop your kids if they need it, because I promise you they will thank you in the long run. So Branson, what do you think?
I think it all comes down to the situation. I think it comes down to learning styles, and it comes down to what the action was that causes discipline. Some things do require a timeout, where some things require restriction, where some things require a spanking. And
Okay, so what would you say requires a spanking?
for example, like violence on another kid, because that's complete things that are like, this is the upper echelon of absolute shame. So it's like, if you keep doing this, you will probably end up dead. You know what I mean? In the long run. Like, if I don't change your behavior right now of you hitting other people's kids, you will probably end up dead if I'm not involved. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or a big one for me is respect, specifically of the mother. I had the beautiful privilege of watching Amanda give birth. And I remember right after she gave birth, after, the initial, oh my goodness, like, this is my baby and whatever. I was like, what a priceless thing that Amanda put her body through just to have my kids. And I was like, I'll be darned if he were to ever disrespect her to a degree of, like, not just challenging, because I think you need to be challenged by the kids. And I think that's another thing that needs to be worked on, is that if your kids challenge you, it doesn't really mean that they're just trying to press your buttons. They might actually just not understand stuff, and you need to explain it to them.
Mhm.
But if it's like direct disobedience, as we used to call it, that's like an absolute no-no. Like, your mom should be the most priceless thing in your life. And is the only person you will not just directly disobey over anyone else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like
I
that.
think the mother is priceless because of being able to see Amanda give birth and what it does. All mothers know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And they don't get enough men to say it. And I know you want that, mothers. So I'm saying it for you. What you did was priceless, and you are commended by me. Good job.
And then you got the stepmom that comes in and had none of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this also plays into, now I don't, Branson didn't have this realization when he was younger and didn't have kids, but this also plays into the conversation that we often have about the role of the mother and the role of the wife being different. So when you get, for example, in my case, I got divorced. So 2 roles were open. Well, I thought, right? Because there's a role of a wife and then there's the role of a mother. And for me, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to put somebody else in those roles because they're no longer in my life. What the mistake I made was the role of the mother was never opened to be filled. And so when Lori come in and I'm expecting her to fill that motherly role, that role wasn't there to be filled.
It's all your daddy's fault.
So separating those out, not just separating them from a physical standpoint, but even just mentally and emotionally doing that was a major change for us, and especially for me, and how I saw things and how I handled things.
Now, let me ask y'all this. This is for both of y'all. As you've grown up, can you see where there were times that I, honest to goodness, had the best of intentions and was trying to help you, but y'all were not interested in that because I wasn't your mom?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Of course, if you can't help someone if they don't want to be helped,
Right.
especially if they don't want to be helped by you.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, I could tell y'all to go brush your teeth, and it was like I asked y'all to go run 75 miles.
That really brings it back, because earlier with to answer your question about the Yoo-hoo thing, we never really answered how we feel about it as adults now.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't regret it, but
What?
I don't regret it, but because at the time, I felt like it was the right decision and it was the right thing to do, even if it wasn't, or if it was a bad decision. At the time, we didn't like you at all. So any reason that we could get to start something, we took it sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe we just had built up resentment that we just wanted to took it out. And then you saying that one thing just was a straw that broke the camel's back, and it just made us blow up on each other.
Well, and your dad wasn't here.
Yeah, he wasn't there to protect you. So
To protect you.
Yeah. He wasn't here to, yeah.
I think another good thing to point out, or such a valuable piece of, if you remember, a lot of the worst things that ever happened within that time was whenever we were all going through puberty. So kids, especially when they're going through puberty, are so emotional. And it's like we're a bunch of different things, but emotional is above all of them. And I know for some kids, definitely me, you just get clouded. So that question that you said, you were like, could you see sometimes if I had your best interest in mind? I could say no, because I was so clouded with like anger and discontent for you. There was no thought process of that. It never occurred. What was Lori's intention? I was like, bad, only bad.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back, there was never a Lori helped me in this regard. It was always, I was angry because of Lori.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Yeah.
So for Ethan, it could be different, but you remember how angry I was at that time. And I was the most outspoken of the group. There was no silencing that anger for me, because another thing that happens as a kid is you feed yourself that and you refeed it over and over again, because that's the only thing you'll believe. And no one can tell you different.
Yeah. Well, that's like when I was going through all that stuff, I didn't recognize what y'all were going through because I was so focused on what I was going through and my own struggles. It wasn't like I ever thought, well, they're not used to somebody other than their mom telling them this stuff. Just stuff like that. It never went through my mind. Y'all were going back and forth between 2 homes. You had 2 different rules, different houses, all that stuff. But I was just so wrapped up in my own hurt that I couldn't see what y'all were struggling with.
Yeah. We couldn't see it for you either, but at the time we didn't care either.
Yep. I didn't care either. That's the thing. It's funny. A lot of people say, you said you hated your stepkids. I said, they hated me, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't want anything to happen to y'all. But if your dad said the kids decided they're never going to come back, I'd have been doing a little happy dance inside because it stressed me out. Now, granted, I'm sure over some time, I would have felt bad about that, maybe. But at the time, no, because we were all in such a bad place. Just like y'all wouldn't have been sad if your dad said Lori and Jackson moved out.
Yeah,
Y'all would have been
I was just about to say, let's keep the record straight. The feeling was absolutely mutual.
Yes.
Yeah,
if so, even more.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah. At the time.
Yep. And Branson, I always say you were the ringleader.
Yeah.
Of burning Lori at the stake.
Proud of it.
Yeah.
Proud of it.
To be the leader.
Oh, okay.
You know.
But here's the part that was hard for me. I was the one and the only one who actually didn't have those feelings toward anybody. Like, you know, I love my kids and I want them here, and I love my wife and I want her here. So I'm in the middle. Everybody else has somebody to hate. I don't. I'm trying to get everybody to love everybody. And so I am completely trapped in the middle of, you know, who am I going to believe when something comes up? Who am I going to side with? You know, who am I going to try to help or what? I mean, it's just, you're in such a bad place being in the middle. And I've said this before, that sometimes when there were problems between you and the kids, I would often try to become the bigger bad guy so that it was easier for y'all to not like me than it was for y'all to not like each other.
Mm-hmm. But
wear on you.
Oh, it was terrible.
It's probably horrible.
Because I mean, I was completely caught in a vice. Like it hurt every single time, because no matter what I was doing, I was simply choosing, who am I going to
piss off or hurt?
Yeah. Who am I going to piss off today? Who am I going to hurt today? Who's going to get the bad side of that today? Because I can't do anything where at least one side that I love is going to hurt. So I'm screwed.
So let me ask you a difficult question. What if, because some people grow out of it, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
What was the game plan 10 years from now if things stayed the exact same? What if there was always problems, always fights?
There was never things are going to be the exact same and we continue.
Mm-mm.
We
this is our last chance.
Yeah. Even though we firmly held on to divorce was not an option, it was not an option unless we had done absolutely everything and it just was not in anyone's best interest to move forward.
And y'all were both under that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, this is the last chance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to ask you, Lori, was there ever a time where you just said, I just need to wait till they grow up and they'll understand? And then what if they don't? What if it's never like that?
If things wouldn't have gotten better with us from me nachoing, as far as rebuilding relationships, that would have been okay. Your dad and I, we were in a better and stronger place. So if y'all chose that y'all didn't want to have a relationship with me when you became an adult, yeah, that would suck, but it wasn't going to end mine and your dad's relationship. Whereas what y'all were doing before was trying to end our relationship.
Yeah. But the collateral of that grown-up part of it is that if we didn't want to have a relationship with you, then that would affect us wanting to see him because you were all also there.
Well, we see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been situations that your dad and I have talked about. And if that would happen, for instance, with one of y'all, then it would be, if y'all wanted to come see him, I'd happily leave.
Okay.
And he could just text me when y'all were gone, or he could go meet y'all somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's never.
I would have never made him choose
Right.
between me and y'all.
It's never a question of you can't have something to do with your kid or whatever the case might be. It's you do whatever you have to do. It's your kid, and I will support you in that. But I may not be here standing with you, but I'm not going to be in your way either.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to know that before things even become problematic, because at any point something could happen and our relationship could be strained, and we could be on the other side of this conversation wondering what we're going to do about that. So I think it's important to kind of have those understandings early on. And Lori and I have that understanding. And to a large degree, we've never had to talk about a lot of these things in depth because it's just known. Like she knows absolutely I would never stand between her and Jackson. And if Jackson ever did something that strained their relationship, or she ever done something to strain the relationship, I would not get in the middle of that. I would not fault her for either wanting to stay away for a while, or if he ever wanted to come back and make amends, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, remember how he did you? And, I wouldn't do that. Not with Jackson. Now, I would do that with some of her other family, but I won't do that with Jackson.
Well, that's like there was a time, Branson, that you were mad at your dad about something. And I was mad at you for being mad at your dad because you said some hurtful things to your dad. But I was also aware of that your dad, it's not like he even had to forgive you for that. You were automatically forgiven because you're his blood child.
Yeah.
To me, I have to not carry the weight of you hurting him because it's not my weight to carry.
I think that's when you have to step back, and number one, you have to not be so in your own head and feel like, the world revolves around you. So it's not about you. And the other thing is you have to take a step back and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
And often people feel victimized when they're not a victim.
Right.
And so it's very easy for them to look through a lens of a reality that doesn't really exist. Go marinate on that one.
Right. One of the base of that question, though, was it's a sad reality to some people that they will reach a breaking point and it will break. Because one of the most unfortunate things about it is, as much as you have nachoing, as much as you have a means to a cause, this could be a battle that's never won for some people.
Yeah.
And it's
absolutely,
being a nacho parent is a long-term game, and kids growing out of their anger or growing out of their emotions will sometimes not happen for some people. So my base was, a lot of people don't want to look at negative reality, but some people have to, and they're like, well, no one else goes through this. Why me? Why me? Why me? So I just wanted to get that question of, like, for some people that maybe it has broken, then to understand that conversation can still be had. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you're like, oh, well, mine didn't work out. What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? But it's like sometimes it's absolutely necessary for that to happen. So I just wanted to know if that negative reality would have happened to us, how it would have been handled.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I knew. Well, I wouldn't say I knew 100%, but I had the thought process of, okay, if this doesn't work out with Lori, then I'm going to have the same issues with somebody else. And so, do I double down on trying to fix this relationship, or do I move on, and then at some point down the road, I'm going to have to start all over and then run into the exact same problems potentially that I have now?
That's a good point.
And then I've wasted all that time and energy and effort and emotional baggage and everything else that comes with that. And so my feeling was, if I can possibly salvage what I have, it would be better than starting over and then still running into a lot of the same issues, if not all of the same issues, just because we were doing it wrong. wrong in our case.
Right. And Branson, I know this is a hypothetical question, but if it worked and your dad and I split up and you were the ringleader, right? So you would have quote, quote, won.
Okay.
Do you think in your mind, if your dad would have gotten in another relationship, you would be thinking we can make her leave too?
I think it would depend on the situation, because I think we can all agree that there were certain things that made us have that hate for you. It was like how we felt that we were treated differently than whenever you treated Jackson. That didn't make sense to us. So we felt like, oh, well, we're just treated like trash whenever Jackson's got labels on his food. Jackson gets certain things, but whenever we want, we get told to put it on our Christmas list and it's March. And
Hey, whoa. I never told you to do that.
No, I'm specifically talking about Dad.
Yeah, but you're comparing how I parented Jackson versus how your dad parented y'all.
Absolutely. As a kid,
not how I
don't
did
look at it that way. Absolutely.
Right.
As a kid, you don't consider that. I didn't consider that. I can't speak for all kids. I didn't consider that. Why are we getting treated different in the same household is how we look at it. You know what I mean?
That's a good point, because a lot of people ask us that question.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not saying necessarily being treated differently by me.
Well, I mean that too, because obviously, and it's understandable that you'll treat your own son different than you will us. I mean, any parent would, but to a kid, they don't understand that, and they don't see it for what it is. They don't take in that reality of it. Well, yeah, that's her son. I'm not her son. And of course, she's going to treat him better than me. But they, as a kid, you don't think that.
Right.
Like, why is she doing that? Why is she not treating me the same?
Right. But when it came to, well, I know what y'all gonna say. If I say when it came to discipline, you're gonna say, well, you never disciplined him.
Oh yeah.
But okay, for instance, I had high expectation of Jackson with his grades. Yeah. I didn't have that expectation with y'all.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have, yeah.
Well, but here's the thing, is that's not something y'all would look at and go, well, that's not fair. She doesn't want us to make all A's.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no chance.
Right.
That happening. For me, anyway.
Yeah. It's just as a kid, the kid's perspective. They don't see it. They
Yep.
don't see it. And you can't explain that to them.
Yeah. They can't really understand that, because they don't see it in that way.
Well, they don't. I would say they don't understand it necessarily. Not that you can't explain it to them, or you shouldn't explain it to them. Because I think there were a lot of times I took you guys upstairs and tried to have the conversation with you about why things were the way they were, and what we're trying to accomplish as a family. And when we had a lot of those, now certainly y'all didn't agree with a lot of it, but I think that it gave you some type of insight about what was going on, and that there were things that were trying to be done constantly to help improve the family relationship with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not like I would come home with McDonald's for Jackson and tell y'all couldn't have any.
That's what it felt like.
Did it?
Whenever he asked for something and he got it like the same day, and then we wanted something, it's not that it's your parenting style versus his parenting style. It's that we're in the same household and one person got something, because there's four of us.
Right.
So it was the same thing with anything. I can't get one person one thing and not get the others anything.
Right. And that's how I looked at it.
Right. So that's how it felt for us.
Yeah.
I never went and got Jackson a candy bar or brought him something. Now, I mean, you might, if you're talking about a toy.
Right.
Or
that's what I'm talking about. Because that's the gold for the kids.
Yeah. Okay. So for instance, for the toy, if Jackson asked me for something, I got it for him. Y'all never asked me for anything. You asked your dad, and your dad said, put it on your Christmas list.
Right.
But in your head, that made me a bad person.
Yes.
And there were times that I did buy y'all stuff. I don't know if y'all remember a lot of that, but like I remember I brought you all that stuff back from Germany. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah. We found a lot of it after y'all moved out. Everything I ever gave you was left, but I never intentionally left y'all out. Okay, so with that example, Branson, you go to your mom's, you come back, y'all got all the stuff your mom bought you. Jackson didn't have anything because his dad didn't do those things. So there were times that Jackson would be like, well, that's not fair. Or
Mhm.
y'all would go on vacation with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson's like, why can't I go with them? He had trouble understanding. He knew y'all had a different mom, but he couldn't understand why he couldn't still be your brother when y'all were with your mom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember explaining to y'all one year at Christmas, I said, number one, y'all get things that are more expensive. So it's going to look like Jackson gets a whole lot more. And number two, Jackson's dad doesn't buy him the stuff for Christmas like your mom does. So I did try to compensate for a lot of that. But I also tried to explain that to y'all because I didn't want y'all to think, hey, you're just buying him a bunch of crap and acting like we don't matter.
Mhm. Yeah. As an adult, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
You know?
As an adult, you do the same thing.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in a blended family, you'd be like, well, why should I buy? If we're under the understanding that you parent how you want to parent, I parent how I want to parent, and we're going to leave each other alone, why would I do something for your kid that I'm going to do for mine if that's not my parenting style? If you don't choose to go buy 4 other kids something, and dad said, yeah, I wouldn't either, because I don't want to get caught in this thing where, oh, now they want this and they want that and they want that. I'd rather just do it all at Christmas. It makes complete sense. But at the time, like, that's why I say the household too, because I don't understand whatever Jackson and his dad was doing.
Mhm.
I don't,
Yeah.
we don't understand that. I don't know what goes on there. I know what goes on
idea.
here.
Right.
I don't know that Jackson's dad doesn't do that for him either.
Right.
So that's why I say the household, because that's how it feels in the household.
Right.
All the outside stuff was irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
But to clarify, even when you're nachoing, like David and I were both nachoing, he never brought y'all something and didn't include Jackson. And I never brought Jackson something and didn't include y'all, because that's crappy.
Yeah. Reminds me of the popcorn ball incident.
Now, Branson, you got this look on your face.
No, yeah, I'm trying. I remember the name. I remember
That's good.
popcorn ball.
Yeah, you wouldn't know what happened there. Basically, it was around Halloween, and the Dollar General always had the popcorn ball.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And so I was at Dollar
Good.
General, and it was very common for me to pick up something for everybody when I went to the store. Heck, I even do that now for the puppies. But so I would go to the store to get something, and they got these little popcorn balls. They're like $1 a piece. So I'm like, I'm gonna get everybody a popcorn ball because I like doing little small gestures like that versus some big something.
Mhm.
You know, I really want to do stuff like that more so.
Well, now buying 5 candy bars will cost you $20.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I came home and I gave all y'all a popcorn ball, and I gave Jackson a popcorn ball, and I can't remember. He didn't say it to me. I don't think. I think he said it to you, Lori. But he was like, "I don't want this thing," and I think he threw it in the trash. You know, like he didn't
want it.
he didn't want it, and he was at that age where being aware that, okay, you just accept it and say your thank you, and then you can decide to throw it away or whatever. He was at the age where it's like, he would just tell you, I don't want it.
Right.
And so again, I don't know if I was standing there with you or if he told me that or whatever it was, but I just remember thinking, that little ungrateful butt.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I remember having a talk with him about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I didn't want it. You tell me not to lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, but you still say thank you, but I'm not thanking. You know, this is whole discussion, Branson, like you're talking about listening to your kid and talking to him about stuff. Yeah. Let me know how that turns out for you in about 20 years, because Jackson always wanted to discuss everything.
Mhm.
If y'all were here, and I knew y'all were here, and I went to Dollar General and got a candy bar for Jackson, I would have never done that and handed it to him in front of y'all, because that isn't intentionally hurting somebody. Oh, Amanda was walking outside. But you never intentionally exclude anybody, because that's crappy. I don't care if you're an adult or a kid.
Yeah.
So why didn't it feel the same way with toys?
Getting Jackson a toy.
Right. Why didn't it feel the same as getting someone like a candy bar?
When you mentioned that earlier, I was trying to think, and of course I can't think of anything specific, that I bought Jackson a toy and I didn't get y'all anything. But when I did get him something, I tried not to give that to him when y'all were here.
Yeah, try to sneak it to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I would wait till y'all weren't here and give it to him. And that way it wasn't like I was excluding y'all.
We would sneak stuff to all y'all sometimes. You didn't.
Yeah.
Like we would, if we were, I remember one time we were baking, I think it was a cake or something, or
It was
cupcake.
red velvet cupcakes or a cake. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of you, I can't remember who it was, but one of you like walked in the kitchen and it was like, here's the one of the beaters, with the
Oh, yeah.
stuff on it. And then we would like hide you in the pantry and you would eat it. And then the next kid will walk in, 10 minutes later. It's like, here's another beater, hide. And so, all of you got the same thing, but everybody thought nobody got anything.
So Branson, with your memory, and I laugh because we talk about your memory being so bad, but with your memory, it was like I came home with gifts for Jackson and not y'all.
Right.
Now, Ethan, do you have that memory? And don't just say yes because of Branson. Because you trying to have his back, which you always try to do.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, I felt the same way. Everything he said is accurate. We all had the mutual feelings.
Well, that bothers me because I don't remember. But whether I wouldn't do that.
It was that way or not, but really, whether it was that way or not, that could have not even been the reality of what was happening. But that's what we thought was happening.
Right.
And that's the way we perceived it to be. So even if it wasn't happening, to us, it was. So, it could have not been happening the way that we think it was happening.
Right. Or it could have been that I gave Jackson the toy while y'all were gone.
Yeah, then we noticed that, hey, that's new. Where'd you get that at?
Right. And why didn't we get one?
Yeah, give it to me.
Or it's like he's like 4 years old. He's like, look what my mom got me last week.
I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. What he didn't tell you is it's probably something he got for his second Christmas, but since he didn't play with it, we put it away and gave it to him later.
David, don't tell my secrets.
We gave him a bicycle 2 years in a row.
We did. The first year he had so much stuff he didn't recognize the bicycle or notice it. So I put it in my building and we gave it to him the next year. My mom actually bought him that bicycle. But and two, I know you've got the grandparents.
Yeah.
And I know my mom and papa, they love y'all. And I know they love Jackson. But it's a different type of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there were times that papa would come bring y'all stuff
Oh, gosh.
and not Jackson.
Yeah.
And David was just glad that they didn't bring anything else because y'all would come loaded, your arms full with stuff.
Yeah, because he never would buy anything small. And it's like, where are we going to put this?
Like a curio cabinet and stuff.
Yeah, like we already don't have room for anything. Matter of fact, do y'all remember, like I would make y'all get rid of stuff? Like if you're going to get one new item, you had to get rid of an item.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because we didn't have room for it.
Mm-hmm. Ethan, I'm glad that you said that, though, about the perception, because I'm sitting here thinking that's horrible.
Yeah.
Because I would never do that to anybody. I know in my soul that I would never intentionally, no matter how much I didn't like y'all, because to me that falls into a crappy, douchey person.
Yeah.
If you are going to do something that will intentionally exclude or hurt a child, you're crappy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember anything like that happening. I do remember them complaining about it, but oftentimes it was because either somebody else had given him something, or he brought something from his dad's, or he got straight A's at school, and so he got something for that or whatever. So I don't recall it just out of the blue. Here's something for Jackson, and I'm not giving the other kids anything. But I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just don't recall those things.
Well, I'm saying it didn't happen because that's crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be like at Christmas, me getting everybody's kid a gift except for Branson's. Like, who would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you would, Lord.
Ethan Sims.
We're not backing down. Burn Lord the Stakes Part 2.
Oh my God, please get them out of my house. I can't take it no more. So we asked y'all this last time that y'all were on. It's been years now.
I don't remember.
I know you don't remember. So see, here's the thing. Anything Branson has said, he don't know if it's true or not. So, and then Ethan's just agreeing with him because, that's his brother.
Brother.
Yeah. But the interesting part is some of our most listened to episodes are the interviews with these kids.
Yeah. Because most people think that nachoing is abuse and that these kids are going to end up in therapy. Look, if y'all need therapy, it's not anything I did.
I can think of a lot of other reasons you probably need to be in therapy.
Yeah.
Yep.
You turned out all right.
Yeah, you turned out all right. I'm proud to say you are not my kids. I remember one day I was talking to you about something. I said, anything good about you, Ethan, I taught you.
Yeah. That's a good thing about the step parent role is you can take credit for all the good and none of the bad.
If you nacho.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I do that. I do that with Jackson all the time. Every time he does something good, I'm like, good thing you had a good step, Daddy.
Yep.
What was the question you're going to ask?
So the question I was going to ask is, say if your dad made y'all do chores and I didn't make Jackson do chores or vice versa, how do you think that could best be explained to a child that it's just different? It's never going to be fair. Kind of like, okay, the neighbor kid. He can ride around on his bike without a helmet, but you can't. It's easy for us to go, well, I'm not their parent.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I'm not your parent, we're all in this house. It makes it seem like everybody should have the same everything.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You want to first? You
go first. Since
right.
Apparently, I influence all your answers.
Truth.
It is hard. It's a hard thing to answer how to explain it to children because children are hard to explain anything to sometimes, depending on if it's something complicated like that.
Yeah.
Of course, having a sit down and trying to say it in the best way you can that they understand would be great. But if they don't get it, then I don't know. It depends on the child. Maybe you have to use whatever method you think is best that they will understand it.
I know Jackson was upset because he couldn't do things y'all could do, but y'all were 5 years older.
He's short.
And so I would tell him, I'm your mom. I decide what you can and can't do. And David's their dad. He can decide what they can or can't do.
Yeah, yeah.
And he seemed to understand that fairly well because when you break it down to, I'm not their parent.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. He seemed to kind of understand it a little bit better. But what about you, Brance?
I would say for our situation, you would sit them down and say, you understand I'm your parent. Everything has to be understood and you have to get it with a yes. It's like the military type thing. Do you understand? Yes. Do you understand that I'm your parent? I'm talking in dad's role.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Do you understand that Lori is your stepmother? Yes. Do you understand Jackson is her son? Yes. Do you want Lori to be able to parent you? No. 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 Okay. That's great. Because we're under the agreement that because you are my son, I will parent you how I choose to. Do you understand that? Yes. Because Jackson is Lori's son, she will choose to parent how she chooses. Is that understood? Like, do you get that? Yes. And if you don't, explain it. It's not that hard.
Just give him a whooping.
But then after you get under all the understanding, but with that being said, if there is ever a moment where someone is breaking that rule, whether they are trying to parent you and that's not their place, or if I'm trying to parent the other kid, then we need to talk about it. We need to address it. Because as long as there's understanding between what is going on and what the agreement is within the household, and there's still going to be arguments about it eventually, but then you just bring it back. I thought we were under that understanding. Well, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the agreement that we're under again. And it's like, oh, it's not because Lori hates me that I can't go and do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because dad's the one saying that.
Right.
Because because going back, they're under the agreement that he makes a decision of what I do.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how I would
I'd
do
say
it.
write up the agreement and get them to sign it.
That's probably better. Get an attorney involved.
If they're a 1-year-old, get their handprint.
Yeah. If they go behind, just sue the kid.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I remember one time, I don't remember exactly what it was, but your dad told y'all something, and Ethan said, "This is coming from Lori, isn't it?"
Yeah.
Yep. I was the bad guy.
Had to be.
Had to be. Yeah.
Somebody's got to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've got one more question, and I don't want to get into this as far as in detail, just kind of a broad question. There were outside influences on y'all that people that didn't care for me.
Uh-huh.
Do you think things would have been easier with us if you didn't have those outside influences?
Just one question. Without a doubt, the biggest outside influence was each other. We all bounced off each other's. But so do you mean child for child not having that, or do you mean
Outside the family, outside
Outside
our
of
four
us,
walls.
of our bubble.
Yeah, outside of our house.
then the reason I'd say no is because of the biggest influence was each other.
All right, that's a good point.
Even if we didn't have anybody else outside to egg us on or, help further instill us in our beliefs, we did it to each other all the time. So, because there's 4 of us, so we had plenty of people to do that.
Yeah. Branson, see if your memory remembers.
Mhm.
You were happy when we got married,
Mm-hmm.
and then something changed, and you told me that it was because I believed Jackson over you. Something happened. Y'all told me something happened. Jackson told me something else happened, and I believed him. And that's when you're like, screw her. She's going down.
You feel a sense of betrayal
Yeah.
whenever you and everyone else is saying the exact same story, but your kid said a different story and you
Mhm.
believe them.
But being a parent, now he's little, but I think you can understand why. Well, here's the thing. Y'all 4 were like a gang.
Yeah.
So it's not like if y'all all 4 told me the same thing, it carried any more weight than if one of you did, because y'all would lie together. All of you in unison. It'd be like, yes. And it would be no, was the real answer. You will never want to believe your child lied.
Yeah.
Back to negative reality.
Good thing I've never done it.
But it's not like we, just because we all had in common that we didn't like you and Jackson,
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we never went out of the way to get each other in trouble still.
Oh, yeah.
It might not have been, now the ratio might have been way out of line.
So you
But-
still try to get each other in trouble,
Yeah,
but you try to get me and Jackson in more trouble.
right.
Yeah.
So whenever we're all saying that, we're like, why would I have his best interest? I hate that guy. And it's him.
Mhm.
I'm pointing at Ethan, And we're thinking of it like, this is what happened. We're just telling you what happened because you asked us what happened. And then we're like, he's lying and you're believing the lie when all of us are telling you that's not what happened.
Mhm.
So you feel betrayed and you're like, all right. And then we talked about this before. I'm quicker to write off people than Ethan is.
Yeah, definitely.
True indeed.
So get it from my dad. So then you're like, okay, fine. That's how you want it. That's how it'll be. Written off like taxes.
No, not like taxes.
Well, how did I get wrote back in? How was I fortunate enough to get wrote back in for you, Branson?
I remember one time Dad had a conversation with me about forgiveness. And it was this full of like Bible verses and loving yourself and God forgiving you and you need to forgive other people. And I mean, it was a whole thing. And I was like, if I want to grow, not only in our relationship, but if I want to grow as a person, I need to learn how to forgive people. No matter how much anger I had, no matter how much anger I had to get past, and that even in that present, forgiveness was necessary.
That was a great answer.
Thank you.
I guess I didn't do half bad as a dad.
You're good.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
It definitely depends on you. Man.
You did good. Good job. Did a really good job.
I want to say too, this is something that I guess we could have brought up earlier, but the other thing that I think you and I both felt as a reason for us fighting for our relationship was because we wanted all the kids to see that people aren't disposable, relationships aren't disposable, and fighting for that is something that you should do. It doesn't mean it's always going to work out. You may still split up or go your separate ways, but you can't just treat people like trash or however you want to phrase it. But we wanted them to see that fighting for, especially a marriage, was something that was required.
Mhm.
Because I want my kids, Avery's married, Branson will be getting married, Ethan, and who knows.
One of these days.
But,
One of these days.
but honestly, there's going to come a time when they all are going to enter into a season where it's going to be stressful. And they might feel like they've made a mistake or marriage is not for them or whatever the case. And I want them to understand.
At least once every month.
Yeah. I just want them to understand that fighting for the relationship is the option. It is the first choice. It's not the last option or whatever. It's what you should do.
Right.
And so that is something that I believed in.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we hope that helped y'all.
Yeah.
or will help you, because
Yeah.
at some point you'll go through a season of tough times. Every relationship does. It ebbs and flows. Lori and I have been through multiple seasons of tough times and for different reasons, and you learn from each and every one. And there's no greater feeling than knowing the person that you're with, that is your significant other or spouse, is absolutely there and has your back.
Yeah. And that lesson should be even more of a requirement for blended families because of the life experience. As a kid, if you're like, oh, you look back at your childhood and you say, oh, well, if things get bad, they don't see the fighting. The kids don't see the fighting for the marriage.
Right. They
So
see the
if they
fighting.
see the end result, if they see the end result was divorce, they'll say, oh, well, if that just happens to me, if things get hard, I'll just divorce.
Exactly.
So it's even more important for blended families to be taught that.
I
More than
agree.
anybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Branson. Thank you, Ethan. As always, it's great. And we'll have y'all back on again soon, since y'all just keep coming back home.
That's right.
Yep. Now I got to go beat these two in bowling.
All right.
I gotta go practice on my speech. I'm still reminiscing over the beginning of the podcast. I just feel like apologize to everybody formally. I hope no one turned it off from there.
Maybe-
For being a
if-
politician.
Maybe if you talk nicely to your stepmom, she can edit that out.
You got to keep that
No, I want to keep it in for life experience.
for entertainment purposes.
Yeah,
For entertainment purposes.
and to get over that Gucci bag.
Oh, you want to talk about the Gucci bag?
Yeah.
This isn't a financial podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to do more embarrassing things to get over my past embarrassments.
Oh, is that what it is? Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, so
You're
you,
not supposed to talk the bad stuff.
yeah.
I mean, stuttering during a podcast, spending $2,000 on a man purse. Tell me which one's worse.
Yeah, it wasn't a stutter. That was worse than a stutter.
What?
you did a man purse. There's only half a dozen people who saw that mistake. Now there's about 50,000 people who just saw your other one.
Learn from me. Learn from me. I'll be your guide. See you next time.
See you next time. All right. David, you can just label this one 268.
It's recording on your side, baby.
Oh, that's right. Duh. Look at them hugging each other.
You talked and said absolutely nothing. No, in the beginning.
Oh, good. I was thinking that you said that. I was thinking that you were saying that I said a $2,000 stutter or a something podcast. I thought you said I twisted
You said
my
which one's
words
worse.
again.
And I was like, no, that was way worse than a stutter because you just like you said a bunch of stuff and I'm looking at Dad like, what are you talking about?
I know. You called me in a question, and I was.
And they're like, what are you saying?
I meant to say, what do you mean? Like, can I
Like,
get
where
more
you going?
context? But I was like, let me just go ahead and work this out in my head.
He was saying a bunch of stuff that didn't mean anything.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, don't even edit it out. Just leave it.
Yeah, just
Branson, I thought it was pretty good.
leave all this. In
I was like, at some point, maybe he's going to bring this around to mean something.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I was getting somewhere, and then Ethan in my peripherals laughing made me keep repeating stuff. And I was like,
it makes no sense.
I see.
He
the
was about to pee
progression.
on himself. He was
I'm
laughing.
like,
I was like, I see the progression.
Yeah.
You're like,
No
I see the-
clue where I went.
You're like, and I see the progression, and I'm here like, oh my god.
And then when I called it out, Ethan just lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was.
That's what I'm
You should be a
thinking.
politician.
I tripped once. And seeing Ethan keep laughing, I was like, dude, where was I going with that? So I kept trying to just make it a run on to find my place. And then
I was thinking in my
bad.
head. I was like, what is he talking about? Then as soon as Dad used to be a politician, I just
what did I even say? What was I
nothing. And Branson's done that a bunch of times. So every time he does it,
There's her intro.
That's it. It makes
With
no
me
sense.
saying you should be a politician because that made no sense.
Yeah, make that the intro.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, make that the intro.
I don't know where I was going with that one. Leave this part in too. Just
Yeah.
so everyone has the understanding. I have no clue where I was going with that.
Yeah.
That happens to all of us. It happens to people, everybody we talk to too.
You can describe Nacho in one word.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, that's so funny, dude.
I'll be hearing that one.
I'm glad you picked it back up because next time, whenever you started talking about another like sentence, I was like, please make this one straight.
It's crazy because that doesn't happen
That
very
way.
often. You were so funny. Dude, here's one thing I wish Ethan would have done. Because Ethan, so many times, if you say some super long-winded thing, Ethan will say yes, and I agree with that because and make a paraphrase of the exact thing you just said. And I was waiting for him to do it so I can get my clap back, but it just never happened.
That is
Like, for example, if you were to say, I think nachoing was so effective for us because it gave us our own independent view of how to parent, and it was the last resort of our marriage. Ethan would say, you know, and that's such a good point because, I mean, it was the last resort of the marriage, and it just gave us such an independent view. And you'd be like, yo, I just said that. You just, like, made it a great value brand. It makes he does it all the time
I
with
do
me.
that sometimes. That's like my form of showing you that I'm listening.
It's just saying stutter through a thing of that. However, comma, it just happened. I don't know. Good thing that was at the beginning and it was when the whole thing.
Well, I actually worked with a lady that she did the same thing you're talking about with Ethan.
Yeah.
She would just go, "Oh yeah," and repeat everything back.
Yep.
And the boss one day said, "Do you think you're sounding intelligent by repeating me?"
You said, do you think you sound intelligent by saying it in the first place?
Yeah.
Oh well, it sounds better when I say it.
Oh,
It sounds better when I say it.
All right, Ethan, say bye.
Bye.
More times that I embarrass myself, more times I'll get thicker skin. Stickers, it's a character building moment.
It is.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Anyway.
That was funny.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. And remember, if you are struggling in your blend, there is help. Look into the Nacho Kids Academy today. And we will also be releasing the guided boot camp challenge again in August. Stay tuned. Until next week, remember, life is good when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.